Africa is sitting on the edge of a massive clean energy revolution. And you know what? It all comes down to one tiny molecule, hydrogen. But we're not talking about just any hydrogen. We're talking about green hydrogen. This is a fuel that could power entire industries, create millions of jobs, and completely redraw the global energy map. So in this explainer, we're going to dig into the incredible business opportunities, the very real hurdles, and the roadmap for turning Africa into a green hydrogen superpower. So, how do we get from all that potential to actual reality? Well, here's our game plan. We'll start with the huge promise of green hydrogen. Then we'll get real about the obstacles standing in the way. We're going to dive deep into the nitty-gritty of regulations and finance, check out the strategies that are starting to take shape, and finally, we'll see what it's really going to take to unleash Africa's full power. Let's jump in. All right, first up, the incredible promise of green hydrogen. Let's really unpack why the African continent, of all places, is so uniquely positioned to become a global giant in this clean energy future. Okay, before we go any further, what are we even talking about when we say green hydrogen? Well, think of it this way. You take renewable energy, like solar and wind, and you use it to split water into hydrogen and oxygen. That's it. The whole process is completely carbon-free, which makes it an absolute game changer for decarbonizing those really tough industries like steel, chemicals, and aviation. You know, the sectors where just plugging in a battery isn't going to work. And listen, this isn't just wishful thinking. This is a conclusion backed by some major players, like the International Renewable Energy Agency, or IRENA. They've basically pointed to sub-Saharan Africa and said, that's it. That's the #1 spot in the world for competitive green hydrogen. And why? It's actually pretty simple. You've got an insane amount of sunshine and wind, the two essential ingredients for making this stuff cheap and clean. At the end of the day, it all comes down to cost. And here's the magic number you need to remember. Under $1.50 per kilogram. That's the price where green hydrogen isn't just a green alternative, it's a true global competitor. And all the studies show that Africa, with its incredible renewable resources, can actually hit that target. So this isn't just about playing in the big leagues, it's about having the potential to win. Okay, so we've seen the massive potential, but let's get real and look at the complex reality on the ground. It's really a story of huge ambition, running up against some pretty serious obstacles. Now, on the surface, things look great. There's real momentum. We're seeing this pipeline of projects in key countries like Egypt, with its amazing access to Europe, and Namibia, which has been a real leader in policy. This chart shows a pretty clear upward trend, with more and more projects planned to come online through 2030. But you have to look a little closer. And this slide, this is the reality check. Yeah, there are over 110 projects announced across the continent, which sounds amazing. But look at this chart. The vast majority of them are stuck in the very, very early stages. They're just a concept or a feasibility study. Almost none have actually broken ground or are up and running. So what gives? Why this huge disconnect between the ambition and the action? Well, it's kind of a perfect storm of challenges. Without clear rules, investors get nervous. Without investment, you can't build the infrastructure. And without that infrastructure, you can't train the huge workforce you're going to need. I mean, Namibia alone is going to need 130,000 skilled workers. And yeah, let's not forget the elephant in the room, water. Making green hydrogen takes a lot of it, and that's a serious challenge in many parts of Africa. All right, let's really zoom in on the two biggest roadblocks that investors and policymakers are wrestling with right now. First, setting up clear rules for the game, and second, figuring out how to unlock all the money that's needed. This table right here, this gets to the absolute heart of the problem. You see a whole lot of yes in that strategy column, but then look at the column for an actual enforceable legal framework, it's almost all no. What this tells you is that while governments have these big, ambitious plans, the actual nitty-gritty rules of the road for investors, they just aren't there yet. And you can't get multi-billion-dollar projects off the drawing board without them. Okay, now let's follow the money, or in this case, the lack of it. Europe has pledged a ton of public funding, but a pretty shocking 90% of it is just sitting there, stuck in the pipeline. So why? It's not just red tape. There's also a real shortage of local experts in green finance. People who know how to actually put these complicated deals together. This has become a massive bottleneck, and it's stalling the really big mega projects. So how do we fix this? How do we finally bridge this gap between ambition and reality? Well, let's take a look at the strategic blueprints that are being put together both at a regional and a continental level to really build a path forward. And here is a fantastic sign of progress. The ECOS Green Hydrogen Policy. This is a total game changer, and here's why. It's not just one country trying to go it alone. It's a coordinated strategy for the entire West African bloc. That creates a much bigger, much more attractive market for investors. This kind of regional teamwork is exactly what can unlock serious growth. And this policy isn't just talk. It sets clear, measurable goals. The target for the ECOWAS region is to produce at least 500,000 tons of green hydrogen every single year by 2030. That gives the entire market a clear signal and a definite goal to aim for. Of course, a target like that comes with a pretty big price tag, somewhere between $3 and $5 billion in investment needed by 2030. Now, that's a huge number for sure, but it also shows you the sheer scale of the business opportunity here. We are talking about billions and billions of dollars in play in just one region of the continent. So, if we zoom out, how do we apply these lessons across the entire continent? The strategy really boils down to three key things. To solve the infrastructure problem, you need to build cross-border energy corridors. To solve the money problem, you have to de-risk these investments to get private capital off the sidelines. And to solve the skills gap, you have to build local industrial hubs and training programs. That's it. That's the three-part plan for a continent-wide green hydrogen economy. Okay, let's bring this all home. What's the ultimate takeaway from all this data? What does this really mean for Africa and for the world? This is, without a doubt, an opportunity that cannot be missed. Here's the most important points, and it's this rare, dual opportunity. This isn't just about shipping clean energy overseas. Green hydrogen allows Africa to become a leader in the global energy market, while at the exact same time using that energy to fuel its own industrial growth, create millions of good jobs, and secure its own energy future. It is a true win-win. So look, the continent has the resources. The ambition is clearly there. The strategies are finally starting to take shape. The fundamental question is no longer if this is going to happen, but how fast the world will partner with Africa to unlock this shared green energy future. Africa's ready. The question is the rest of the world?